Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show will revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Moosie Drier and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen, along with Moosie Drier, and today we are thrilled to welcome one of the stars of one of the most iconic TV series of all time in Batman. He's also an animal welfare activist and creator of Gentle Giant's Pet Food, and he's the author of the fantastic memoir, Boy Wonder, My Life in Tights. Please help us welcome Burt Ward. Burt, thanks so much for joining us.
Hello, citizens.
Welcome.
Well, we are so thrilled to have you on. And we want to start with the Batman show itself, because there are so many people who just don't know that from syndication that the show was on twice a week and you had 60 episodes in season 2. I don't know how many primetime scripted shows got that. Can you talk a little about your shooting schedule and how popular the show was in its heyday?
Well, first of all, we did 120 episodes altogether, comprising 3 different seasons. It was a tremendously difficult shoot because there were so many special effects, explosions, all kinds of contraptions and things like that. So we also had a large crew. Normally there's a crew of about 30, and at some point we got up to, I think, 80 people working on the crew, trying to get all these various special effects to work. So for me, it was 5 days a week, but you had to be there like between 7:30, and you ended up leaving around 6 or 6:30, which is long hours, especially when you're in makeup and an incredibly uncomfortable costume to wear that. And also at that time they didn't have the cool lights that they have now, so they had to use these giant arc lamps. And when you're on the stage with these giant arc lamps that they're using to light with, I mean, you just like start to melt in about 5 minutes when you're out there, especially when you're in a very heavy costume. So it was a lot of fun. Don't misunderstand me. And it was unbelievable. I guess the fabulous new style that we created. I mean, when we first came out, color television had really just, had occurred just before we came out. So to have a show like ours in the most amazing colors of all time, it was phenomenal. And of course, our show was so different from everything else on television. We used to say that we put on our tights to put on the world. That television at that time was basically, in terms of entertainment, either police shows or medical shows, and you've got the good guys and the bad guys. And, people watching it kind of watch it, as I would describe, kind of like in a third party where you're just watching it, but you don't feel involved. Whereas with Batman, we made a special effort to draw in our audience, especially the kids, to draw them in, make them feel they're right there, riding in the Batmobile with Batman and Robin. And the kinds of effects that we did, and the spectacular style, and the subtle double meanings for the college kids and the teenagers, the nostalgia of the comic book for the adults. All of this worked together to reach an amazingly gigantic audience, an audience that, well, it was over 400 million people a week. So, and it was a fantastic show. It was a dangerous show. I had a stuntman, but they rarely used him because he didn't look like me, which, what can you do? So I think they had a policy on Batman: if there's anything really dangerous, always use Burt.
Well, I always enjoyed you, and I enjoyed Kato from Green Hornet. Bruce Lee played. Yeah, I was always focused on the guy who's gonna, you're gonna take over the whole empire soon enough. And I think you did an amazing job.
Well, thank you. A lot of kids gravitated more towards Robin than Batman. I mean, of course, Batman was the star and everything, but for a kid, who isn't over 16 years of age, yeah, right? He can't drive the Batmobile. He's not 6'4". I mean, he realizes that that there's just too broad a difference. But to associate with the person that got to ride in the Batmobile with Batman, that got to fight alongside Batman, climb the walls, do all the daring do's that Batman got to do, and was young, in fact, under 16 years of age. I mean, that was something that a lot of kids gravitated to. And I mean, there's so many people over the years. I mean, just to give you an idea, I've made more than, I think, 7,500 personal appearances and signed, I think, more than 8.5 million autographs in my career. And, you know, so many people, when they come up, you know, they'd say, oh, my brother played Batman, I played Robin. And I mean, you know, everybody had, and they talked about when they would come up, they would bring things like a lunchbox that looked like an elephant had sat on it or something. I mean, it just something they treasured from so many years. And obviously it was just beaten up over the years, but boy, that lunchbox they wanted signed with my autograph or Adam's autograph. And it's funny also, you know, at the time, when I would see this at appearances where there was a lot of other celebrities as well. You know, when the average person would come up and meet one of the celebrities from a different show, whatever it might be, you know, they were always excited to meet them. But when you say Batman to people, it's like instantly they get like a kind of a smile come across their face, and it, because they realize that was that really special show where things that never had occurred before on television, you know, was something that every day we did, you know, and bigger than life, of course. The whole world at that time was a different kind of world than it is today.
Yeah.
And you know, I was really a kid when I got the part. I mean, I think about myself as a kid. I was 20, and but I had grown up in a conservative family, and you know, being on a Cole soundstage, you know, 12 hours, 10 to 12 hours a day, every day. And the youngest person closest to my age was Adam West.
Wow.
And I was 20 and he was 37. He was 17 years older than me. And then, of course, you've got all the members of the crew. And I mean, these were the pros of the pros, the best of the best. But they're all in their 50s, some in their 60s, you know. So, and there wasn't anybody my age to talk to. And then Adam and I, but we got along great. We were incredible friends, which is rare, you know, on a show like this. But we, you know, and in many ways, you know, he mentored me with, you know, well, don't do this and don't get the crew upset, and, you know, don't worry if somebody sits in your seat, and, you know, I mean, all of this stuff that kind of like, you know, introduces you to this very special world of filmmaking.
Batman and Robin was a DC product, is that right? A property?
Yes. When I first was cast as Robin, the whole Batman and Superman franchise was owned by a company called National Periodicals, and they sold it to DC Comics, and DC Comics became part of Warner Brothers, and so, which is still today, you know, a division of Warner Brothers. And you know, through the years, I've met, I mean, I think I go back to just about every single person I've met at the very highest levels of either Warner Brothers or DC. They don't go back that far that I went when I first got the role and flew to New York to meet Jay Emmett, who was the president of National Periodicals before it was sold to Warner Brothers. So I really was right there from the beginning, you know, certainly before it was started to be made, but right at the time when everything was in the process of creation.
Did they have like a kind of a handle on you guys as far as storylines and, you know, or could the show do what it wanted to?
Oh, well, no. First of all, the network, ABC, you know, basically green lighted the show. From the production company, by the way, was called Greenway Productions, in association with 20th Century Fox. But the executive producer, William Dozier, you know, who had been a vice president at CBS and was famous for the Hallmark movie franchise, he brought on a famous writer named Lorenzo Semple Jr., who was known for satirical comedy, and at first people didn't quite understand. You have to think about it for a minute. nowhere in television had there ever been anything that was say one thing and actually mean something else. I mean, television was like, you have to just take it like it is.
Yeah.
So with the style that we had, there were some people at first that didn't get it. They thought it was a serious show because they were so used to watching. But then as they started to understand the campy style we did, so it was developed by the executive producer of the production company, and 20th Century Fox gave us, and ABC gave us a mid-season replacement, came on in January 12th, 1966. And just to give you an idea, they had promoted it really big. And when we had 2 shows a week, Tuesday and Thursday, 7 to 7:30, right after dinner. I mean, it was like the perfect time, the family, kids are in school during the day and the dad or mom is out working, and they come home at night and everybody sits down and has their dinner. And then after dinner, they, as a family, that's when they really sort of get together and watch television. And here is Batman. And it was just, our ratings were so incredibly high that they exceeded anything that Super Bowl has done.
Wow.
It's just really amazing. To give you an idea, on opening night, on January 12th, 1966, there, of course, they have these, like Nielsen, the ratings and stuff, that it was determined that in North America, which encompasses the US, Canada, and Mexico, that of all the televisions that were turned on, that 55% of every television turned on was watching Batman on its opening night, and that all of the other 2 networks, the other regional stations, local stations, shared the other 45%. And it was just unheard of, a 55 share. And we became instantly number 1 and number 2, because twice a week in the entire world. And
Wow.
it was phenomenal. I mean, people around the world, there were ladies that had Batman styled hairdos, the Batman merchandise. After the first year, Warner Brothers reported sales of $3.7 billion. The first year. Now, it's $3.7 billion in 1966 is probably like $37 billion in today's world. I mean, just beyond anything. And Batman merchandising till this day has been greater than any other licensed merchandise in the world, greater than Superman, greater than Lord of the Rings, or greater than Star Wars, greater than Harry Potter, greater than everything. Nothing has ever exceeded the Batman merchandise.
Yeah. I'm curious one thing, just going back to the comic, did you read the comics while you were doing the show? Because they changed many storylines in the comics based on to base what you were doing on the show.
No, I had never even read a Batman comic book when I was a kid, because where I grew up, they didn't have, the distribution wasn't there. And where I grew up here, and I grew up in Beverly Hills, and for whatever reason, I love to read Superman comic books, and especially Superboy, if there was an issue that had a Superboy in it, but I wasn't aware. And when we first screen tested, neither Adam nor I had any idea what the show was. When I screen tested, I was given a single sheet of paper. On that paper, it had these little like paragraphs, but there were 1 or 2 sentences at a time, and all it said on there at the top of each paragraph was either Bruce, for Bruce Wayne, but we didn't know at the time, Bruce or Dick. So they said, "You're reading Dick," and Adam, funny because we screen tested together, said, "You're reading, you're reading Bruce," and we had no idea about it. And so when we screen tested, we first were doing it in civilian clothes.
No longer will a Caped Crusader and his youthful aide be able to combat crime in Gotham City.
Looks black as pitch, Dick. I've been through all my father's old law books.
But then after the short scene that Adam and I did in our civilian clothes, I thought it was over. And I said, "Well, thank you very much." I started to leave. They said, "Wait a minute, whoa. We're not finished with you yet." And I said, "Oh, okay." They said, "We want you to go over there to the other side of the soundstage." And I look, I say, "Where's the other end?" That's the biggest thing I ever saw in my life. Way over there. You'll find if you go way over there to the other end, you're going to see these wardrobe trailers, and one of them's going to have a light on. There's going to be 2 wardrobe guys. They're waiting to help you get dressed. And I stopped for a second. And I mean, obviously I knew I was going to have to change clothes. I said, but with all due respect, I'm perfectly capable of dressing myself. And sure enough, there was two wardrobe guys, and I walked in, and there was it looked like a giant bed, but it was some kind of a giant mattress type thing, or multiple mattresses, and the whole thing was littered with all these different clothes. And I said, "Am I going to put some of this on?" They said, "No, you're going to put all of it on." And I go, "Oh my gosh!" And they got me in this costume. I could hardly walk. I couldn't see very well through the mask because it blocked my vision, except looking straight forward. I almost broke my neck coming out of on the stairs outside the trailer. And that costume just itched and pulled and pinched in every way a human could imagine. And I said, I can't, what is this? Maybe this is some Shakespearean period piece or something. I had no idea what this was about. And then I hobbled all the way over the other side, those 3 blocks, it seemed like, to get to where the set was. And then there they are. And then I see my co-actor, Adam West. He's in a funny looking costume too.
Look, between the lines. When is the time of a clock like the whistle of a train?
When it's 2 to 2. 2, 2, 2.
Right you are.
Well, I'm going to do a couple of throws and a couple of falls.
Falls? You're going to take the falls yourself?
Right, I'm going to do the falls first, and then I'm going to take the throws.
And you're looking at costumes you've never seen before. You don't know what to think. And, so I did that. And then, I later on found out, it's based on a comic book. I said, well, I never read that comic book.
Wow.
And took about 6 weeks. I ended up getting the role.
Interesting. So within the material, but before you went to order, you auditioned with scenes, but it didn't give it away because
No, all I had was a single sheet of paper. One sheet of paper that
one
had
side.
Bruce and Dick. I didn't get any. Then when it came back, that there was, they handed us something that, it was another single sheet of paper. Then you read this part and you read that part, and you're all in a costume and you're not thinking clearly, and they got an arrow part, pointed to where I'm supposed to speak.
Right.
So I didn't even, what did Robin mean? Robin didn't mean anything to me. I never heard it before. Batman, I never heard it before.
So during the show, you recorded several songs, I believe, by Frank Zappa, including
With
the
Frank
Boy
Zappa,
Wonder, I Love You. How did that come about? And did you get to interact with Mr. Zappa or?
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah?
yes.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Well, what happened was Batman became such a gigantic hit that people wanted to use me for other projects. And MGM Records came to me and said, we'd like to give you a recording contract. I said, I can't sing. They said, oh, no, everybody can sing. I said, oh, no. They came up with an idea. They said, well, we need you to do some kind of, maybe kind of a talking song that will put music around it. So I got the idea because I was getting so much fan mail of taking parts of a couple of different, fan mails, putting them together. And that created the song, Boy Wonder, I Love You.
Boy Wonder, I love you. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Hi, kids. It's me, your pal, the Boy Wonder.
They took it off because it was too wild at the time, but we got to number 6. Wow. And it was just basically a fan writing like, oh, I love you so much. Can you come over to my house? And I'd like you to spend the whole summer. I'll make you breakfast in bed. And the most innocent thing in the world. But oh no, bedrooms and you.
Please, Boy Wonder, please come next Saturday and sleep for a week or 2. I will feed you breakfast in bed.
So you got hurt a few times, I read.
Oh, big time. I went to the emergency hospital for the first 6 days of filming.
Oh, wow.
2nd-degree burns, 2x4 that blew up. They blew up a set when the set was supposed to be a breakaway set, and they built it like a house, and there was no time to shoot it, and we had to. They used 2 half sticks of dynamite, nearly blew the sound stage down, and I was tied down on a table, and a giant 2x4 came down and broke my nose. I got hurt on Batman, especially the explosive stuff. There was one time that they had told me it was later on in the series when and whenever they have an explosion, that I was always like, uncomfortable with that. And I was about 10 feet away, and they said, "Oh, don't worry. This is a small charge and it's aimed down, and not to worry." And, and I knew the cue, which was when they were going to set off the charge. And they said, "Nothing to worry about, nothing to worry about." And just before, just a split second, I closed my eyes, and the explosion didn't just go down, it went out. And I had second-degree burns on my eyelids. And the doctor told me at the emergency hospital, if I hadn't closed my eyes, I would be blind for the rest of my life. So, I mean, there was some really serious stuff on Batman. And, you hear about these movies where people literally get killed, and, I think that things are much more careful in today's world. And but I had a stuntman that didn't look like me. So on all the close shots of any kind of real thing, I had to always do it myself.
Well, I have an idea. Let's find a stuntman that looks like Burt Ward and keep him out of danger, and let a stuntman do what he's hired to do. I don't.
That would have been wonderful, but they couldn't find one. My stuntman looked like Cyrano de Bergerac. In a close-up, there's just no way they could do movie magic to make it look the same.
Wow.
Just, you talk about the sets, and just because I love the history of things, I was reading that the Batcave was built in the same spot that they filmed the Skull Island sequence in King Kong. Did you ever go search and find other mementos from previous productions?
No, I didn't, only because if you can imagine, I had a schedule of very long hours, 5 days a week, and on weekends making appearances. I didn't have a day off. I never took a vacation the entire time I was filming, ever. There was always something. If it wasn't during the show, and then during the show, it's like, you got to be there, and you get this and that, and you have no free time. Even though you've got 45 minutes, I thought if I brought a book, I'd 45 minutes in between shots. But there's always something. They interrupt you, like, "Oh, Burt, we need you over in makeup." Or, "Wait a minute, they want to try another utility belt," or this. You never have a moment's peace when you're there. I could not read a paragraph of any book because there was just never a minute's peace.
You mentioned people you worked with on the show. There were some semi-regulars and a lot of guest stars. So let's talk about Cesar Romero and Burgess Meredith. I mean, these are big time heavy hitters, especially at that time. What were they like to work with?
Like all the others, it was incredibly nice, incredibly professional. There's just nothing other than pure professionalism. I mean, it was like, you just feel it. You're in awe in their presence. They had a certain kind of a glow, it seemed like, that they gave off, and they just were just amazing. And I loved it. I mean, that was more exciting to me than anything, is meeting them and just being in that atmosphere of somebody at that level of success and professionalism.
And it's a shame, but many people don't remember, what a great comedian Frank Gorchian was. What are your memories of him?
Oh, he and I got along great. After the show, he came to our house, my wife and I. We'd go out for dinner. He was very afraid of dogs. And of course, my wife and I operate the world's largest giant breed dog rescue, giant breeds, right? Not even little ones. So he was like terrified of them, but he calmed down, and he got it to where he did the best he could. And they were very sweet to him. So, but he was just the nicest guy and just a funny guy. We just had such a good time together, I mean, he was just, and so creative. I mean, and his laugh was just like phenomenal.
In his autobiography, Adam West talked about Neil Hamilton. He said he found him difficult to work with. Did you find that as well?
No, Neil was one of the sweetest people. He was just very meticulous, In other words, like, for example, they never put makeup on him. Why? Because every single day, right on time, he would get 5 minutes of sun on each side of his face, and he always had a beautiful tan. And I mean, but it just wonderful. I love those people. I loved every one of them. They were wonderful.
Do you have a special memory about guest stars that have come on and did maybe an episode?
No, because every one of these was somebody that I knew of or had seen on
Yeah.
television or watched in the movies. So for me, it was just like one after another, after another, after another. I never had a favorite. I mean, every one was like super special to me.
So I read that so Cary Grant and Frank Sinatra lobbied to get on to your show. Is this true, or do you remember that?
I don't know about Cary Grant. I know about Frank Sinatra, but Cesar Romero had already been cast as the Joker. And so many actors wanted to be on. There weren't enough roles, so that's when they created the walking up the side of the building and the window would open up. And the very first time the actor that did that was Sammy Davis Jr. And then later on, Jerry Lewis and.
Hey, Batman and Robin, what are you guys doing?
Just routine crime fighting.
Yes, citizen, but don't be alarmed. We're here on official business.
Holy human flies.
You're right, honey. There was somebody walking up the wall.
I thought perhaps you might be a singing duo, you know, the outfits and all that?
No, we're duly deputized officers of the law.
You know my aide, Cato?
Robin, the boy wonder.
Nice to have met you.
Gosh, Batman, what are they dressed like that for?
Don't slip. Brave man, Jim.
I am looking for an underground agent.
Oh, it's you, Batman.
Donald, ho! What are you doing here?
Well, I came back to get some land we lost back in Hawaii.
You tell me where the Batcave is, and I'll leave a little present in your stocking.
If you can't trust Santa, whom can you trust?
I was hoping to revive my TV show, People Are Funny, but I can't seem to find any unusual people in Gotham City.
No, this is just an ordinary, fine, upstanding metropolis.
I wonder who they really are. Probably a couple of international playboys.
I also want to ask, because I'm a big fan, you had Leslie Gore on a couple of times. It was like kind of like a love interest. What are your memories with her?
Well, Leslie Gore was a phenomenal success in recording artist, and she was brought on and she played a role of Pussycat to Catwoman, kind of like what Robin is to Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some scenes together, and just delightful, and so talented. And she sang one of her songs, I think it was California Dreaming or something like that, and on the show. And it just was it was great. It was a lot of fun. That particular episode, she scratched me with this catatonic thing that made me turn bad against Batman, and Batman and I got into a short fight, and it was great. It was great, and it was different, and I think that the fans love that.
Absolutely. All right, we'll come back to Batman, but you have a dog food product.
Yes.
Tell us.
It's our charity.
Okay.
It's our charity. Well, for the last 31 years, my wife and I have operated the world's largest giant breed dog rescue. Basically, how we got involved with it, when we moved here, we had our daughter that was 3 years old. We wanted to get a big dog for her, and I wanted to get a Great Dane, and we heard about all these Great Danes dying in animal shelters, and why is this happening? And it turns out that when people can't keep a dog or a cat or some other pet, but mainly dogs and cats, if they can't keep it anymore for whatever reason, or they choose not to, or they have to travel, or whatever it might be, if they can't find somebody to take it, they'll turn it into a shelter, and the shelters are overrun with animals. Okay, and it's tragic, but more than 1 million dogs a month are put to death throughout the United States because they're homeless, and the shelters can't keep them, and it turns out that rescues are something really wonderful. I didn't know anything about it, but there are breed rescues. Like there's a Pomeranian rescue, a Chihuahua rescue, German Shepherd rescue, and there should have been a Great Dane rescue, and there had been, but the person in Southern California who was doing all of Southern California rescuing Great Danes that had to be given up so they wouldn't go to a shelter and be put to death, that lady died herself. So when we rescued this Great Dane and we found about these others that were dying in shelters, I said to my wife, Tracy, this is in August of 1994. I said, Tracy, we can't let these dogs die. How about just for a couple of weeks? just till I can find somebody else to take this over. Let's rescue these Great Danes. Well, let me tell you something. By the end of August of 1994, in our house, not outside, not in some other building, not at somebody else's house, in our house, I had 102 full-size Great
Oh my
Danes
gosh.
and 61 puppies under 7 weeks of age, 7 litters. Obviously, we never found anybody take it over. 31 years later, still taking care of these dogs, but they traditionally have short lives. When you're with them all that time, you get very attached. And when we would lose one, it was devastating. And going back to when this all happened, first couple years of doing it, my wife and I vowed if we could find a way to help them live longer. I mean, a Great Dane only lives 7 to 9 years. An English Mastiff or an Irish Wolfhound, they only live 6 to 8 years. That's all. Big, beautiful dogs. And we vowed if we could find a way to help them live longer. And we developed a special way to feed dogs that is different than everybody else, the way they feed them. Okay, that adds a minimum of 5 years to a dog's life. Then we said, is there something else we could do? And the only thing left that we could find was to make food. We did common sense things, and we learned how pet food companies know things that average person doesn't know. Like the more fat content you put in the food, the hungrier it makes the dog. Actually affects their brains, and it literally controls to eat more food to make you buy more dog food. How unscrupulous. Or you cook some bacon, would you take the grease, pour it down your sink into your garbage disposal? Oh, of course not. It would clog it. That's right. Because unlike water that evaporates, animal fat coagulates. When it hardens, it's like cement. Okay. And if you did that and you left it in you put it down your drain and you left it for a day, you'd be calling a plumber to replace your garbage disposal. So my point is this: when you realize that animal fat will ruin a metal garbage disposal, why would anyone ever feed an animal a food that would not only filled with animal fat purposely, but coated with animal fat that clogs their arteries, clogs their intestines? What happens to humans when they get clogged arteries? Heart attacks and die. Same can happen to a dog. People that make things to make a profit with it, they obviously make it as cheap as they can and sell it for as much as they can because they have all this overhead and buildings and employees and executives and all. No. My wife and I, this is our charity. We don't take a single dime in salary for this.
Wow.
Nothing. Never have, we never will. And it's all about making the finest food in the world to help them live longer. And let me tell you something. To my knowledge, we are the only ones in the entire world that have dogs and cats living up to and over 30 years of age. Wow. I mean, we don't care how much money is taken in as long as it just covers the cost, because we're not trying to sell more food. We're trying to keep dogs alive longer and cats. Next week, a week from today, we are filming a gentleman who's got 2 dogs. One of his dogs, both of them have been eating our food for the last 16 and a half years. And one of those dogs on January 3rd of this year, 4 months ago, turned 31 years of age. Wow. Been eating our food for 16 and a half years. Okay. We're going to videotape for a TV spot. Okay. And here's this dog, healthy. He can still run around. He turned blind. Okay. Age, he's blind, but he's still active. He's still healthy. Gentle Giants, and it's available in all the Petco stores all across America. Petco stores. It's also online on petco.com, chewy.com. I'd like to mention our website for our dogs is gentlegiantsdogfood.com, and our cat food website is gentlegiantscatfood.com, where people can go, and especially with our dog site, because it's just so built out with so many television shows we've been on, where we've brought dogs that were like 25 and 26 years of age onto the television shows, and people were stunned and amazed. And it's, again, this is our charity and it's our life's work. And here's what they're all saying, these vets, that 20 years ago, they would see one dog or one cat a month that had cancer. Now, in today's world, okay, with more than 90% of the food that everyone eats, including animals genetically modified, they're saying that every single day, 1 out of every 2 dogs and cats they see already has cancer. It is wiping out our pet population. And to my knowledge, we are now the only food in the US that is 100% certified non-GMO. Anything you put in your body, good or bad.
Yeah. Thank you for all that.
I have to ask about one story that's kind of gotten big, and I have to hear your side of this. So we'll come back to the show, but there's a story about that you were giving a speech at Harvard once, and your costume was stolen by Conan OBrien while he was a student there. Do you remember everything about that and what happened?
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, what it was, I was voted, didn't even know that there was a Man of the Year. I was voted Man of the Year at Harvard University in 1984. And I brought my costume, and I didn't wear it because, the one thing that both Adam and I did is that for especially for children, but if we were in the costume, we were in character. So I brought it and I had it, on a kind of like a mannequin, it was really just hanging there and next to me. And during my speech, Conan OBrien, I didn't know him at the time. I just saw him come up and say, "Oh, there's some security issue involving your costume because we know how valuable it is." He and another guy took the costume and took about 2 days to get it back. And that was a $500,000 costume. I mean, that was something serious, but we got it back. And years later, he had a television show, the Conan OBrien show. I went on the show and he and I reminisced about it. It was fun. It was a funny thing that happened. He's a character, and even the college kid, everybody loved Batman.
You can plead the fifth, but do you have a favorite Catwoman?
Oh, they were three great actresses.
Yeah, Merryweather and Numar and
Merryweather played Catwoman in the feature film that we did because Julie Numar, who was cast in the series as Catwoman, she had another film project to do, so she couldn't do it. And then later in the third season, they added Eartha Kitt, and all three of them were great actresses. I thought, hey, they're all phenomenal. And I must tell you, the actors and actresses that we had on Batman, they were among the finest in the world. I mean, everyone that came on and played a role that was a celebrity is somebody that I either watched on television growing up or watched in the movie theater. And for me to meet these people, Vincent Price, for example, I remember when I was a kid, I was so scared. I watched this movie called The Raven, and that he was in, and it's one of the horror film, horror at that time film. And he first came on the set, I was like, I had a frightening feeling in my stomach, but he was such a nice man and great actor. And I was thrilled because, when you're filming, there's just this tremendous amount of waiting. It takes about 45 minutes to light and get the camera and everything ready to do a single shot. And then you work for about 30 seconds, maybe a minute once in a great while, but you're working for 30 seconds. Yeah. And you got to sit down and wait another 45 minutes. So everybody's sitting around, which, for me, I was like the kid in the candy store because I'd pull up my chair and sit next to one of the celebrities. And, as long as I didn't get under their skin too much, I was like, wow, what the great experience to me among these top pros, and every one of them. They were just meticulous in preparing for their role. They knew all their lines. There was this level of professionalism that kind of reminded me of what we think of old Hollywood. You know what I mean? The most famous of stars in the days of, the Clark Gables and stuff like that. It was just amazing. And for me, I was like, wow, every one of these people, amazing people.
So did you guys get some backlash at all from organized religion about the costumes or something?
Yes, we did. Yeah. We did. They, the Catholic Legion of Decency, got all upset that they didn't think that Robin fit properly in his costume, and that there was too much of a bulge. And I thought, oh, that's a big joke, until all of a sudden it's like, no, it's not such a big joke. They're putting pressure on the network to do something or take us off the air or do something. And, the wardrobe department came up with every god-awful contraption you can imagine to try to, I mean, man was not built for tights. That's simply the answer, And and people made jokes about it and stuff like that. But eventually, the problem went away. But it was, everybody wanted to get in. You have to understand something that was so big that everybody wanted to have some thought or some this or some that, and participate. Psychiatrists were trying to analyze, the Batman and Robin relationship, and the press would ask me about it. What I mean? And they say, well, yeah, but their psychiatrists are saying that there's a strange and unnatural relationship between Batman and Robin. They're a little more tactful then than they are now about it. And I say, what's so strange about two guys running around wearing tights and living together? And oh my, and I say it deadpan, and that's really the style of Batman, the campy style. You take something that's funny, you say it seriously, and depending on who it is, they get it or they don't get it.
Yeah, and you play it straight. Like you guys would show up, on a location in a scene in all your tights and costumes, and people weren't like, well, the guy's wearing tights over there or anything like that. There was like Gotham knew like that. Oh, that's Batman and Robin. You play it straight and you just go.
Right. Well, the fun things were, and some of the fun little bits in the show, like we'd be outside on a street and we used the 20th Century Fox lot, they had like a city street. And we're chasing these bad guys, right? So these bad guys just run across the street away from us. And I'm starting to run after him. Batman, stop. No, Robin, we must use the crosswalk. That's the law. No. I said, like, Batman, it's going to slow us down. Got to use the crosswalk. Okay. Or like we'd pull up and park a Batmobile, and I'd jump because I would jump over the door and start to run. Wait, Robin, we got to put money in the meter. That's the law.
So as you know, not everything we read on the internet is true. So I'll ask you, Burt, were you up for Dustin Hoffman's role in The Graduate?
Well, I was supposed to do The Graduate before Dustin.
Oh, wow.
Dustin Hoffman was hired when they couldn't get me. Larry Terman, the producer, came to me during the filming of Batman and said, I've got a small project here at 20th Century Fox, and I'd love you to star in it. And Fox approved me, and I thought for sure I'd be able to do it because it wasn't like at a competing studio; it was at the same studio. And ABC refused to allow me to do it. They were very upset, and the reason for that was at the time when Batman came out, there were really two major networks: CBS and NBC. ABC was a syndicated network. And between Batman and Bewitched was so enormous success that it made ABC the third network. And they did not want any dilution of my character. And it was a big thing because I really wanted to do it. And when they couldn't get me, they ended up hiring Dustin Hoffman. And I can't tell you how many times through the years later I would be out and about and maybe at a restaurant and I run into this producer, Larry Terman. And years later, you always say, Burt, I always wanted you for that part. You were perfect for it, So it would have been, and I would have loved to do it, but it just shows you that, you win some, you lose some. I mean, it is what it is. But for me, I looked upon my career as like a glass full of water, in which it could be full of a bunch of smaller projects or with one major projects along with other smaller projects, which has happened in my case. I starred in 40 movies for television. Some of these are little TV movies, but they're still movies. They've been on air many, many times and stuff like that. And I had fun doing them.
I picture it though. I picture you in The Graduate, had a wholesome, vulnerable,
I can see it for sure.
all-American. Yeah.
Well, I tell people all the time, and I even discussed with Moosie this past week, there is no better memoir, showbiz memoir, than yours. My Life in Tight. It's the best showbiz memoir that I think I've read. So while on the show, you used to have groupies sneak into your trailers.
Well, or try to, or whatever. Yeah. But it's pretty hard getting onto a set. It's more like when you go out and make appearances where you're, off off of the lot. I mean, this to get into a into a studio lot is not that easy. So it wasn't like so much at where we were. It was more like making the appearances, because Adam and I made thousands. I mean, like I said, over 7,000 appearances in my career, and all across America and many in Canada.
When the show ended, Burt, did you get to like take any props home or anything real special that we would all
I got
know
a
of?
batarang, but I had my own costume made at the time, because my costumes in all the fight scenes were always torn or shredded or even, and so I had a costume that I had made exact duplicate that I owned and kept, because I'd use that for close-ups and stuff, because it was just like perfect.
Yeah.
And later on, I would make appearances with that, and then finally, I donated it to a museum.
Nice.
So you've been honored a few times, including one by DC Comics, the 50 who made DC great, and also a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Can you just talk about those honors a little bit?
Yeah, it's great. It was wonderful. I was amazed to have an opportunity, and it was, in fact, just before COVID hit, that thank goodness that and getting a star is not that easy. It's not enough just to be a celebrity. You have to be a celebrity that also does charitable work and things for the community. And it's a very, very special thing. And at the event, it's all recorded. My wife and I are gonna put out a video on it very shortly. It's about the 25-minute video on that event, and then it's customary for the celebrity who gets the honor afterwards to have either kind of not either a party or luncheon or something like that. And my wife and I threw a party, which right around the corner at the Hollywood Museum, where we put on the first Burt Ward Global Batusi for World Peace, where we had people all around the world on television. I mean, all these countries. We had, I think, Channel 10 in Australia, their hosts and everybody right on the network doing the Batusi, and Israeli soldiers at the Wailing Wall, they're in Israel doing the Batusi. And the whole idea is that, whatever we're doing, let's stop for a few minutes and let's have some fun and kind of, maybe try to take a second look at the world we live in a more humane way.
That's great.
Yeah. I've seen the exhibit at the Hollywood Museum. Daniel Dadigan, the owner, Roger Neal and Harlan Bowl do a great job of really bringing some special things for people to enjoy.
Right.
And I recommend anybody to go to the Hollywood Museum.
You did this Crisis on Infinite Earths on that Supergirl episode. Has Wonder
It was fun to do that. It was fun. I filmed that in Vancouver, and that's where they were filming. And it was a short bit, but it came on right before the commercial, and it got a lot of attention. A lot of people talked about it, and I thought that they had me with a German Shepherd walking a dog as a German Shepherd. And I thought it was because of all the rescue work and all of our charity work and things like that with dogs that they had done that. But upon doing some research, it turned out that in the Batman comic book that there was a bat dog, and it was Ace, A-C-E, Ace the Bat Dog, which was a German Shepherd. And so that was just a little bit that they threw in. So I'm kind of walking the German Shepherd when I have that scene.
So Batman is still on the air. It's been 60 years. What do you attribute to the longevity of this show? Like, in a nutshell, like what do you think is the main ingredients that's keeping that thing just rolling for decades?
In one word, fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in today's world, and in today's world is a lot more serious and heavier than in the past. So people love an opportunity to break away from the seriousness of things and just have a little entertainment. Just, that's why even during the 1920s, I mean, and I wasn't around then, but when they had the Great Depression, people went to movie theaters because with the heaviness of what life can be, you need a little break. You got to have a little fun in life. And Batman is pure fun. Absolutely. It always will be.
Absolutely.
Now, last thing for me, it's also just what would you like people to remember with Adam West? I mean, you had such a close relationship, and he always came across as such a great person too. So what was one thing that you would like people to remember with Adam West?
That he loved people and he loved making them happy, and he loved performing. He just loved it. I mean, at the appearances, the people would flock to him and to me, and he just loved it, and I loved it too. I mean, the adoration was just amazing, and the fact that we could bring happiness to many people that otherwise might have a dreary day, and yet they have a 30 minutes of a little bit of happiness to offset the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
You mentioned your website, but how can people follow you on social media?
Well, the best thing is, because we do a lot of stuff on our website, to go to gentlegiantsdogfood.com or gentlegiantscatfood.com. There are some Facebook sites that we have, but we don't attend to them too much. So I would really encourage people to go to our website, because there's only so many hours in the day, and we focus on keeping our website updated.
Good on you. And Mr. Ward,
yes,
you are a legend. I mean, you are just
absolutely
legendary and a gentleman. And we just thank you for your time. This has been fantastic. Thank you for sharing all that you have. And we really, really appreciate this.
Well, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to reach people.
100%.
Well, thank you again. And like I said, it's been such a pleasure for us getting to speak. And we're huge fans, and it's really an honor. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, as we say on Batman, to the Batmobile.
I love it. Okay,
Well,
he's going to sign us off. Here we go.
Well, again, this has been Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen, along with Moosie Drier. And again, a very special thanks to Burt Ward. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast.